The Live Talk Show is about testimonies where you can listen to be inspired, encouraged, uplifted, and entertained. It's The Life. Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us live on YouTube. Right now, this morning, I do have a special guest, but before I introduce my special guest to you, I want to let you know, of course, as you already know, what this platform is about. We give God all the glory by our testimony based off Revelations 12:11, and we overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. It's so important to give God the glory and to really speak candidly, openly, and transparently about the things that we have gone through in our walk with Christ. Sometimes it hasn't been an easy walk. There are trials and tribulations. And so I invite people to come on this platform to just speak about their testimony, whatever it is that they want to discuss, however they're led by the Holy Spirit to share their testimony in hopes that it will inspire, encourage viewers such as yourselves that are watching this. You just need to really understand that you're not the only one going through something by yourself. And if we can overcome and if we can go through it and make it on the other side without smelling like smoke or looking like what we've been through, then you can also. So my guest for today is Drew Hinds Jr. He has written and published 4 books and is known for his Don't Spoil Your Appetite self-help series, a book dedicated to domestic violence victims. As a chaplain, he has interviewed hundreds of domestic violence victims and their families. He has been featured in Florida's Palm Beach Post and Country and countless radio interviews. His new talk show entitled Let's Talk Chivalry unveils many misconceptions that men and women have when they are seeking monogamous relationships in which to procreate. You can also find him on his social media platforms, which is on Facebook.com, Let's Talk Chivalry TV, on his Instagram at Let's Talk Chivalry, and then of course on YouTube, there is his YouTube link, which I will share in the description for you as well. And if you all want any copies of his books, you can find them on Amazon. So let's welcome Drew. Thank you so much for joining us. I do know that you're going to be via audio, so we're not going to get the privilege to see Drew's face, but that's okay. So Drew, are you there?
I'm here.
All righty. So let's just start with you discussing your testimony and especially with domestic violence, like what drew you to wanting to minister to domestic violence victims?
It's funny. I was actually a police officer for many years, about 14 years now, and it kind of came in like that. It's funny. A lot of us find ourselves kind of stuck in the church and the 4 walls. And I was so blessed when God put me in a profession that I never really thought I would be in, that forced me to be out there in the streets, doing a lot of street ministry.
Okay. Were you ever a victim of your domestic violence?
No, not myself. No, I wasn't a victim per se. It was more of when I became adult and started to witness with my profession. That, when I actually got involved in domestic violence, I saw that there was a need for education and encouragement and definitely ministry.
Okay, so in your ministry of domestic violence, and even, if you want to speak about your own personal, walk with Christ and everything, what did he reveal to you? Like, how were you able to, empathize with domestic violence victims, and also how did God orchestrate and use you in that manner?
Well, it's funny you say that. What I've noticed is a lot of people who have fell into this mode of being a victim really don't know that they're a victim. It has become their norm. We were talking about generational curses. A lot of times these things stem from their youth. So they're growing up seeing, family and friends and loved ones in this domestic situation, and it becomes their norm. So when they become an adult, it seems like the normal thing, like nothing's wrong. So they find themselves in that general that generational curse. As far as the ministry, there's a lot of, in the church, there's a lot of people who are going through the same things. And because it becomes their norm, they don't speak out. And those who see that something may be wrong, they're embarrassed. There's a lot of times it's an unspoken truth within the four walls of the church. So I decided to just go ahead and write about that in my series. So.
Absolutely. So yeah, that is unfortunate for people that think that that is the norm to be abused, because no one should be abused. God doesn't call us to be abused. And so how do they begin the process to pretty much renew their mind and knowing that this is not the norm for them to sit in an abusive relationship and that God doesn't want them to be abused? So how does the process begin to start for them to have the courage to walk away from it and to have healing?
Well, I think that reformation of character kind of comes from within. Even happiness comes from within. It's not external. And first you have to think about it. You have to really, a person has to get to the mindset where they understand, okay, something's not right. I mean, I know exactly what it is, but something's not right. And then they can have that mindset to actually recognize that and actually pray about it and ask God to give them that reformation of character. Then they can have what we call revival of spirit, and they can change. Also, it's also good in the carnal sense to get counsel. A lot of times friends and family are supportive, and that's what support comes from. And, they'll kind of lead you to get, some kind of counseling or whatnot. And as time goes on, you can you can recognize what the issues are, the red flags, and kind of remove yourself out of the situation and break this generational curse. So it's something that has to happen in the spiritual and the carnal. They say faith without works is dead. So that's very, very important that, we kind of transition from the mindset we had, because everything we go through is a learned behavior. Even being a victim is a learned behavior. So we have to unlearn that negative behavior.
Okay. And I want to switch gears for a moment, because you did mention that you were a police officer, correct?
That's correct.
So because we know within the climate that we're in right now, that there has been a lot of unarmed Black men being killed, by the police. And they have their hands up. They're doing everything that they possibly can do to survive, just to come home and stay alive and come home. So you being on the side of, being a police officer yourself, how did you diffuse when you were in, heated situations where, you're not being respected? You are in a position of authority, but yet they may not listen to you. And maybe you haven't encountered something like that, but how did you diffuse? What did you do to keep your sanity?
Honestly, I'm not really sure how anyone in this profession could not know God. You think about it, we see people at their worst. When someone calls for assistance, whether it's 911 or whatever it is, we're seeing somebody at their worst. I know my mindset is, I stay prayed up, because I know it's a spiritual warfare. And also keeping in mind that, I'm a man of color, as well as in the law. I think a lot of people kind of just go into it as a job. And if you take it in as a job, if you think about, Paul wrote in, Ephesians 4, he says, I therefore, prisoner of the Lord, beseech thee to walk worthy in a vocation without call. Which means that no matter what position or vocation that you're in, you should glorify God. You should let your light so shine. So I go in there intentionally with a mindset to where, God, how can I be used? So when I go in there, you kind of use your verbal judo or whatnot, but I understand that they're already strengths. I understand that there's tension in the air. So I go in there, with the mindset, mentally to engage, to encourage, to empower. So that's my mindset going into it. And the thing is, I don't have fear. When I say fear, you understand, God says He's not giving us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. So when I go into this, you have to understand the reason why a lot of people, and I'm just going to be very candid, is the reason why a lot of people end up getting injured or hurt is one, because of lack of training, two, because of fear. So when we fear the unknown, we react, and we do things that really doesn't end out well. But when you go into it with a sound mind, a sound judgment, you're thinking about what you're doing and how you can diffuse it. You know what I'm saying? When you're in fear, you're just going to react. That fight or flight kind of reaction. That's where things go, spiral downward. So it's more of when we understand. If we have this understanding of our communities, community policing is really important to even understand your community. For me, I'm always vested, so I live and work in the same area, so I know the people. It's like, these are the people in your neighborhood kind of thing. We all know each other. So it's like a family unit, so there's no reason to be fear if we know each other.
Mm-hmm. So that's really good. That's really good advice for all of us to take, where, before we even begin our day, before we even go into a situation, we don't know what that may be, but God knows. And so when we stay prayed up, like you said, when we go in with a sound mind and not having a spirit of fear or being intimidated by what may come, we know how to assess the situation and moving forward. Have you ever come to a point on the job where it was a life or death situation, where it was either you or it was them?
Honestly, I think that's a regular basis. I have a lot of war stories. I'll talk about one recently. There was a shooting about a month ago, and I won't go into detail. But basically, it came down to where there was some disturbance between family members, and it got to where it was getting violent. And when like I said, I say prayed up before I even go, and I prepare for the worst and hope for the best kind of thing. And it so happened where shots were fired, and I was able to, in that split second, I was able to just be like, oh God, here we go. And I was able to use my words, which is, most people are like, what? Okay, shots fired, you're using your words. I was able to talking like, hey, and I got their attention, and I was like, hey, just relax. And it was, and I think it was more of a spiritual thing, because before I was going to say, hey, come on, stop, relax. And for them to just, it was funny, because you could see the change, because, even though I was prepared to protect those on the scene, I also had compassion, and I think that goes a long way. It really does. And, God prevailed, and everybody was safe, and we got out of there alive. But like I said, it's back to fear. If you have fear, that's you've already lost. It's done. You have to go in there with a clear mind. You have to be intentional. And like I said, I don't see how anybody can do this profession without knowing God. I think this has brought me closer to God, if anything else.
So where were you before you joined the police officer? Like, share a little bit about your testimony.
Oh, wow. 8 years Army. Hoorah. So, yes, I was in the military. Went to the military. It's funny. I was always in church and growing up as a kid. So it was funny that there was an incident. I got around 16 where a close friend of mine died in the accident. It was basically a train versus a car. And they were coming from a funeral. I was actually supposed to ride with them. To go to the funeral, I overslept. And so, I kind of escaped from that incident.
Mm-hmm.
But from that incident, when things happen to you as children, or even in life, it's kind of a make you or break you kind of thing. You either become closer to God, or it kind of pushes you away.
Mm-hmm.
That crossroad. For me, I was on the fence, because I couldn't understand how God would allow a young person from my choir, to be killed the next day. And it was just really, traumatizing. So I kind of ran away from God. I was kind of like Jonah. I was running away. I went to the military, escaped, and it's funny how God worked it out. We're in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And certain individuals ministering to me, and I was just really disgruntled. And it so happened that one of the young men asked me to walk with him one Sunday, and we was walking. It's actually in Fort Bliss, Texas, and we was walking. I don't know if you've been to Texas, but it's that dry heat.
Oh,
And
I live in Texas. Yeah, I live in Dallas, Fort Worth.
It felt like forever.
Yeah.
We finally got to this building, and we got in the building, and I was so relieved that the AC was working, and we went inside. And when I look inside, I'm like, oh, it's like a church service. I'm like, man, I ain't doing no church. So I walked back outside, and the heat hit me, and I'm like, oh, man, it's hot out here. So I walked back in the building, and I'm like, okay, at least the AC's working. So it just so happened they were playing a song that was familiar to me, and I just, for whatever reason, it kept bothering me that the music they were doing wasn't right. They weren't singing it right. It was just really something that. And I sat there, and it bothered me so bad that I actually just walked into the church service and started playing the piano that was sitting in the corner. And from then I became the choir director, minister of music. You can't run from God. You see, when God,
no, you cannot.
When you're chosen, God, you can't run from Him.
Wow. So, Drew, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back more with, your testimony and everything that you have going on, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty.
Hey, this is Ashley, the Transformation Life Coach. Be sure to check us out on the website at www.thelife146.org.
All right, so we are back with Drew, and we have been talking about his testimony from him working with domestic violence victims, as well as him being a police officer and being in the line of duty and the things that he had to endure. But one thing's for certain is that he has a relationship with the Father for him to get through those trials and tribulations, to get through the things that he has faced and endured in his life. And we're going to pick it back up to where he's talking about you can't outrun God, because when God has called you, many are called, but few are chosen. And it's the ones who actually answer that call from God, and how God just sets us up, not so much for, a setup for disaster, but according to Jeremiah 29:11, to give you a future and to give you a hope in a future, and for you to be successful, for you to be prosperous. So it's according to his will that he has for your life. And of course, we know that Father knows best. So Drew, what is the most difficult thing that you had to face? And it was like, you were at a rock bottom place or whatever it may have been, and God came through for you, like to really show his sovereignty, his grace to you.
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. I'm trying to narrow it down. I think one of the hardest things for me, especially as a leader, was divorce. Honestly, I mean, I've been shot at. I've gone through things in the military. I've gone through things in the Army, and also law enforcement. But I think the hardest thing we kind of hit home was relationship, and having to go through a failed relationship. And it's funny because I do a lot of counseling on relationship, and I kind of realized that I was more in love with the idea of being in a relationship than actually the actual person. And it's funny, a lot of us, we pray for God to give us a significant other, but a lot of times we pray for things. But for whatever reason, we don't wait on God. And in my situation, I didn't wait on God. I prayed about it. And I'm like, he might be busy. Let me see if I can help him out. kind of speed it along. I was like, let me help him out. And, the thing is, when we put ourselves in mess, we can't really ask God to bless some mess if it's a mess.
Yes, it is a mess.
You have to just be still and know that He is God and allow Him to order your steps. But for a lot of us, we have to go there. And looking back, I didn't know that it would become a ministry because it's like, when we're going through stuff, just like Job went through things, we don't really understand the outcome of why God is allowing us to be in a situation.
Right.
But He also said that, He will never give us more than we can bear. So for myself, when I was put in that situation, I couldn't see it. But now looking back in hindsight, now I can help and minister, to so many people who are going through divorce, have gone through the healing process, and, the stress they go through. I didn't even know what anxiety attack was. I remember I was from the hospital, and the doctor was like, sir, it seems like you have what we call an anxiety attack. I'm like, ain't nobody attacked me, I have a gun. He's like, no, sir, I don't think you understand. And it was black nurse in the room, and she was like, no, you had a nervous breakdown, baby. I was like, but that's for old people. It was like, no, it attacks the stress. And I was like, and he was like, is anybody kind of stress you're going through in life? I started thinking on my ex, and I was like, hyperventilating, like, sit down.
Oh my goodness. Okay, wait a minute, Drew. Wait a minute, because you said so much. So the thing is that one of the things that caught my attention is that you were in love with the idea of having a relationship, but not actually in love with the actual person you married. How does that work?
Okay, now as a woman, the whole biological clock. Brothers, we got watches and clocks too. Come on now.
Okay, so obviously you was drawn to the physical, right?
It was. I wouldn't say it was drawn to the physical. It was when it's all superficial, but it's more or less where I was in my 30s, and I was like, I don't have a chick or a child kind of thing. I'm just like working, and it was like the idea came on mind. It'd be nice to have a family to experience that. It's the only thing I really haven't experienced at this juncture of my life. So it was more of where I was in love with the idea of having the experience of father. That really pulled me towards that and kind of try to speed it up.
Mm-hmm. Wow. How long were you married for?
7 years.
7 years. And so when was enough to not put on this false facade of, being in love and relationship? And also, was the feeling mutual? Was your ex-wife feeling the same way, or was she like all in?
Honestly, how do I put it nicely? We both were it was more of a means for ends for both of us. For me, I wanted, the experience of a relationship and to be a father and a husband all nine. For her, she had other things that she was trying to accomplish as well. So it wasn't that we had a connection. That's what I'm talking about in my new book I'm working on. The whole divorce and reconciliation is that, we have to have a true connection. First, we have, all relationships start with having a relationship with God.
Right.
The better relation we have with God is a better relation we're going to have with His creation. So I had to learn, how to qualify. When we talk about relationships, you'll hear me in different books. I'll talk about 60-40. And basically, a man, as a woman, when you meet a man, you have to make sure that, this man is at a 60%. Make sure that he has a mindset where he understands, he knows what he wants. He wants to be in a committed relationship, a monogamous relationship. And once he's at a mindset, you have to find out, can he provide and protect? Does he have the financial know-how and the mental fortitude to take care of a family? And then also, as a woman, can he give you the emotional security that you need? So once you find out he's at his 50%, and the other 40% is, okay, are you the woman that he needs? Now, with that, you have to learn how to qualify. And the qualifiers are mental connection, emotional, spiritual, and physical connection. So once you have those kind of connections there, then that's the basis, the foundation. With me, I didn't have those. I didn't understand what those connections were. I was just like, okay, I'm a smart guy. She's an intelligent woman. We make it business. In my mind, it was like a business transaction. It wasn't, I understand that the word says that love covers a multitude of sin. We all have shortcomings. We're all flawed.
Yes.
So no one's perfect. So you have to have that emotional connection to overlook the flaws. Like you say, love is blind. I didn't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, my father had died when I was 7 months old, so I had to kind of figure out a lot of things and become a self-made man. But by the grace of God, he'd be on. So I can encourage.
And so that leads me to the fact that you have a chivalry talk show where you help men and women. And I know that when we connected on Facebook, you were, you would pose and ask questions regarding, relationships of, different things and backgrounds or whatever, like getting people's opinions of what they may think. And so is that what led you after your divorce to venture off to, that new platform?
It's funny. I never meant to do anything. Everything's always inspired. So it's like, I'm the guy that's always running away from things, but then it's like, when God keeps throwing it in your face, you really don't have anywhere else to run kind of thing. So, so it wasn't something I was planning on doing. In fact, I think I was a guest on someone's show. I'd, already written like 4 books already, done speaking engagements, different things, and one-on-one, like a life coach. And a lot of people kept asking me, like, "Hey, Drew, man, if you have these books in audio, man, I don't feel like reading." And I'm like, I ain't got them in audio. Just read the book. And I got a lot of that feedback, and people were like, "Hey, just do that nice. You need to, do some kind of talk show, do something." And I got invited on the show, some of this, and we were talking, and so many people were like dialing in and trying to contact me. Wow, okay, maybe there is something to this thing. So.
Right.
Rest is history.
Absolutely. So, what do you say to the viewers that are watching and listening, that are in a position where they're struggling within their relationship, due to quarantine? People have to be locked in and people have to really much face the truth, face themselves. And so what do you say to the person that may be on the verge of, thinking about divorce, or they're no longer, attracted to their spouse for whatever reason the issue may occur? What do you say as an encouragement?
Wow. It all goes back to prayer. The thing is, what I've learned is that if you, like we said before, the closer you are with God, if you can be disciplined to spend time with, someone that you can't see and, hear their voice, it makes it easier to coincide with someone that you can see and touch. It's a discipline thing. You have to kind of take the time to learn our spouses. A lot of us don't even know what the love language is. We need it, to learn them. And once you kind of got into the space to where you're already in it, it's more of maintenance. Communication is a big, big thing. It's a learned behavior. It's not something that we innately just have. We have to learn how to communicate, learn how to be effective listeners. And I think the majority of our issues are communication issues. We really don't listen to our spouses. And I think if we just take the time to, fast and pray, to communicate, to, even being submissive. I know a lot of people hear that word submissive and everybody start fighting. Submission it's not a sign of weakness. In fact, it's a sign of power, because if you realize that this person cares about you, and you know that this person's gonna not make any decision that's gonna hurt or harm you, and it's in your best interest, then you're willing to submit and allow this person to lead. And I think that's, if we kind of get those mindsets intact, I think we can work out the rest of it.
What is interesting too, I want to set this up for you, and I want you to just, speak from your heart and give a concrete answer. But okay, so let's say, a woman and a man, they meet each other. There's some attraction going on because initially, that's the first meet, right? What you see. And then let's say they make plans to go out to dinner or make plans for the first date. What should be discussed within that first date? Is that you're just getting a feel of that person? You're just trying to get to know them. But how do you establish, without coming off strong or, running the other person away? How do you, set that tone that, listen, this is what I'm wanting. This is what I desire. This is where I am now in my life, and allowing that person to be honest, to say where they are, whether they agree or don't agree. And then, if need be, this is not, what I'm looking for, and be able to walk away without trying to force it or try to make it happen.
Great question. The thing is, a person can't make a well-informed decision unless we actually have all the information. So it's self-disclosure is a big thing. If I self-disclose and let you know everything that in my heart and my intentions, then it makes it easy for the opposing party to self-disclose as well. So just be open and honest. Just be transparent. First there's a dating phase, and then if we get to the dating phase that we're, on the same page, and we go into the courting phase. I know a lot of us kind of skip that. But,
the courting phase, that's good. That's important. So what goes along with the courting phase? So after you've gone through the phase of dating and you all have both agreed that this is something that you want to move forward in, what is the aspects of the courting phase?
The courting phase is more or less a mindset to where, okay, like you said, we've known each other. We know that we have connection. We have the potential to make a relationship. Now it's us just planning. A lot of times we spend more time planning for a marriage, for a wedding, than we actually plan for the marriage itself. Kind of backwards. So if we kind of really say, okay, listen, let's make sure we go and talk about these things. We want kids. Do we not want kids? Where are we going to live? What I'm saying? How do we do things? What kind of foods do we eat? Really kind of getting on the same page and not overlooking the small things, because small things can end up to be big problems later on. So you have to be open and candid about that. And it goes back to knowing yourself. Before you even go to the dating phase, we should spend time and love ourselves, understanding that love and happiness comes from within. So if you're not happy with yourself, if you don't know yourself, then taking time to love yourself and find out what you like, your likes and dislikes are. When you get in a relationship, how can you let this person know who you want? If you don't know who you, if you haven't taken the time to love yourself and know yourself, then you can't teach someone how to love you. I think that's a lot of the issues that I've found is a lot of people jump into relationships, hot and heavy dating and all this stuff like that, and they really don't know who they are. They don't really know what they want. All they know is trying to fill a void of loneliness. And honestly, that void of loneliness can't be filled externally. This is something that you have to, between you and God, you have to get to the point to where you enjoy. No one should ever start getting in a relationship until they enjoy being single, enjoy spending time with themselves. When you can get up and go to the restaurant and eat by yourself and go to the movies, and enjoy your movies, and do all these things by yourself and travel. Hey, I went to Paris by myself. We're like, what? But I enjoyed myself. A lot of people, they really don't love themselves. They really don't know what it is to enjoy their own space. So if you can't love yourself, how do you expect somebody else to come and enjoy your space with you?
And that's the thing too, Drew, that you said, like trying to fill a void, and only first God can fill a void. That's your first love. That's your first relationship, is with the Father through Jesus. And then the next thing is that as he loves you and as you begin your relationship with him, that's when he begins to unpack things that may have happened that you forgot about, or that you avoided, that you wanted to just, leave dormant. But then he pulled those things to the forefront to actually heal you, whether it's in childhood, whether it's generational curses and ancestral things that was in your bloodline that he chose you to break. And then after you receive your healing and the process of that, and now the next phase would be, enjoying yourself, loving yourself, and learning about yourself all over again, and really spending that time with you and the Lord, but, developing some things that will be your foundation to move forward. So when you do enter into a relationship, when he do bless you with that man of God or that woman of God, then, when there's some wounds, when your wounds are healed over, which means that you won't bleed on them, with your heart issues or with your, drama. And so I think that that's really good. And also another thing that I want to add too, for those who are, seeking relationship, dating or whatever, what are you set a foundation, the core of what you're not willing to compromise on, which means, what is your top 5 things that you just say, what? This is where I am. This is what grounds me. Like, for example, for mine, because I did take a relationship course. And it wasn't so much a relationship to get married or to, it was so much more of doing soul reflection, looking at myself, looking at my heart, and really going in to, really set boundaries and things that I want for myself personally, professionally, as well as, with my spouse. And one of the things is that we have to write down 5 things that we were willing to not compromise on. And mine was, for one, he has to be a man of God. He has to have a relationship with the Lord and love God and be a man after his own heart, because that will set the course for everything in his decision making, in his prayer life, And 2, he has to know his purpose. He has to be walking within his purpose, a plan. His calling, pretty much. And then the next 3 are like, that he is an effective communicator, like he responds back to phone calls and text messages. He does not ignore those things if I happen to call him and text him. And for the record, I am single, but these are things that I have put in place that I'm not willing to, leave by the wayside, that when God does bless me and when that man does find me, these things are already set. It's like a standard, setting a standard for yourself. And I'm not saying that if they can't meet all of them, but at least it'll be a start to say, okay, does he meet this? Do they meet this? Does she meet this, and this? Because if not, and let's say that you give us some grace, some room, but if not, then you already know it's not for you. Does that make sense, Drew? Is that good advice coming from the relationship guru?
That is definitely good advice. And like I said, you have to, you'll hear me say, you have to prepare yourself to receive the blessing.
Mm-hmm.
This is all part of the preparation. Doing it. If you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. And you have to know who you are, what you stand for, and what you want out of a relationship. So you can convey that, you can verbalize that, and both you guys can make a well-informed decision.
And also, I want to say too, don't be fearful. I know we get that thing in our heart or in our gut, and you become fearful that you like, oh, I just want to, please them, or I want to say the right thing, and I want to, throw that out the door, because when you meet that person, what God has for you will be for you. You don't have to try to fit a circle in a square. They will be on one accord with you. And also, when it happens, I do believe that you will know it and God will confirm it for you. You don't have to sit around wondering and even, compromise yourself to receive that. Like, not at all. So, Drew, what I want to do now is that I saved this segment for the last part of the interview, where I hit you with the hot track. And really, this is just a fun icebreaker, 5 questions of the fire rapid questions that I came up with the Holy Spirit, and everything else is Holy Spirit led. That's why, when we just have a conversation, and whatever comes in my spirit, whatever, you pops in your spirit that you want to speak from the heart, then we allow that to happen. We give the Holy Spirit room. We don't want to quench him, but he did give me 5 questions. So are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Number 1, what is your favorite verse in the Bible?
Oh, I will lift up my eyes to the hills from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, he who has made heaven and earth. There's so many. I'm just picking one.
Okay, that's fine. Number 2, how do you get into the presence of the Lord?
Music. No matter where it is, it always put a song in my heart. And, I have, music ministries in my past and present. So it should be music, worship.
Number 3, what do you think heaven is like?
I know it's the opposite of what we got going on here. Beyond the whole streets of gold kind of thing. It's a place of just peace and serenity. No sickness, no sadness. Being in the presence of God is awesome.
Number 4, who would you like to meet in heaven? It can be from the Old Testament or New Testament.
I would like to sit down and talk with Paul.
Paul?
He really had, he really had a good grasp on what, the gospel.
And the last question, number 5, given the opportunity in a small, intimate, quiet setting between you and the Father, and he manifests himself to you face to face, what would you say to him?
Now, you promised me a wife. Now, we have to sit and talk about that, because I've been waiting for a minute. It's with me, I'm content. The word says, in all things be content. And regardless of my status, I'm happy. I'm good. But, I guess it would be like, God, you waited a long time to come and get us. Like, man, look how much stuff has happened, and you allowed us to go to a lot, and it's wonderful. Even when you think about the story of Job, when he endured so much, and in the midst of everything he went through, he still glorified God. It's something we have to remember too, because when it was all said and done, God blessed him, and he blessed him double times what he had before, and he promised him. He said, "Listen, your latter shall be greater." So as children of God, we have to hold on to that same faith and that same promises for all of God's children, that our latter shall be greater. We just have to stand still and know that He's God.
Yes, indeed. And so, Drew, this is where I turn it over to you for final thoughts that you want to say to the audience, anything that God has placed on your heart that you want to speak from.
Well, to all those who are listening, I definitely want to encourage you. I know we all gone through times in our lives where we feel overwhelmed. We may have hit rock bottom, but I just want to let you know that when you've hit rock bottom, there's honestly nowhere else to go but up. And if we can have faith that God can do things, we also need to have active faith that God will do things on our behalf. He says a fervent prayer availeth much. So just be encouraged. I know life may be hard, but trouble don't last always. And I just want to encourage you guys to just keep keeping on. Never lose faith, and in all things acknowledge Him. I'm telling you, He will direct your path. Tomorrow will be a better day.
Amen. And so with that said, that concludes our show for today. But as always, I always encourage you to have a relationship with the Father if you don't already have one. And then also, if you want to, if you have a relationship with the Father, but there's some things in your life that, you need to clean up, maybe you've backslidden. It doesn't matter. God is always here, and He's always wanting you to commune with you, to have a relationship with you, to fellowship with you, and to give you a life of purpose, to give you a life of success and prosper. So I hope that you all be blessed on this Saturday. Please be safe for the weekend and hold on to your faith in God, because listen, God is true, and He is not, He doesn't change. There's no variation with Him. He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. So just remember that a transformed life equals an abundant life. And I will see you guys next Saturday. Take care. God bless. Bye.